All right, we're live. Yay! Welcome to the Tread Guys, episode 45. I'm your host, Melanie. I do a webcomic called Ornamental at ornamentalcomics.com. Co-hosting today with me is Dave Barrick of Girl Power at girlpowercomic.com.
Hello.
And we are interviewing Melanie Gillman, so another Melanie. Yay. You can find her work at melaniegillman.com. She currently does the webcomic called As the Crow Flies. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your comic and how you got started?
Sure. Well, I'm a queer non-binary cartoonist, and I do use they pronouns. And I've been working in the industry for about 8 years now. And the big project I'm working on is As the Crow Flies, which is a webcomic that I'm doing, which is all about the experiences of queer and trans teenagers in a Christian youth camp. So specifically dealing with, like, how do these kids negotiate, like homophobia and transphobia in these spaces, and, you know, in ostensibly Christian spaces, and how do you handle that when you're like 12 and you don't know anything? So it's a lot about the friendships that they make, the conversations that they have, and also a lot about backpacking too. It all takes place in the Rocky Mountains, so there's a lot of, you know, very rich mountain landscapes that go on. I do everything in colored pencils, so it's very richly illustrated in traditional media throughout.
Sounds
Heck
very
yeah.
stupid as well.
Heck yeah, that sounds awesome. I love traditional comics. It's nothing against digital. Love you, Dave. But no, at least myself, I just can't seem to create comics any other way. I can add, you know, digital elements to it, but the main core of it has to be traditional. Do you letter as well with color pencil and whatnot, or is that digital? Is that your...
The lettering's just done with microns. Lettering with colored pencils would be a nightmare. God bless anybody who wants to do that.
Oh, man. But it is quite awesome. I really have been enjoying as their adventure has been going on, and just their exploration of character. You've been doing really great with just their personalities really being able to shine through. How long have you been writing on this before you launched the comic?
That's a tricky question, because I tried to draw the comic back when I was only like a year and a half into drawing comics at all, and it was terrible. So I did it. I drew like 40 pages, and then I realized that this was an awful idea, and I absolutely should not be doing this. So I put it down for about 2 years, and in the meantime, I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies, and I actually got my MFA out there. So I, you know, went through an intensive 2 years of studying comics, and then I came back to the store and was like, okay, I can do this right now. Restarted it from the beginning and have been doing it ever since. So it's been about 4 years now that I've been working on As the Crow Flies. And it's about 275 pages long right now. It'll probably get up to somewhere in the 500 range by the end of it.
Neat. So do you plan on getting this published at some point, either self-publishing or maybe through a little help there?
Yeah. It's under contract at Iron Circus Comics right now. So the company that Spike runs, that does all the like Smut Peddler anthologies and TJ and the Mall, she's going to be doing a Kickstarter for it probably sometime in like spring of 2017, and hopefully going to be printing it in the fall of 2017. So about a year from now, there'll be actual physical copies in the world.
I listen to their Dirty Old Ladies podcast, and they talk about publishing and all the, you know, webcomic stuff. It's one of my favorite ones. I regularly, I mean, as soon as they update, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, Dirty Old Ladies is great.
Heck yeah. I've been enjoying listening to their podcast when I go to work. Must pay the bills, so I have the day job myself. Got to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
So I see you also have a little donation bucket on your website. Is that connected to a Patreon, or is that just a strictly little donation?
That one is just for like PayPal donations, but I do have a Patreon page too. So yeah, if people are looking for ways to throw money at me to support, the free comics that I make, then yeah, there are multiple ways to do that.
Very cool.
Looking at your page, can I suggest a Patreon graphic, somewhat more prominent? I can't find your Patreon link. Just looking at the latest page.
Yeah, on some level, that's a little bit deliberate because I'm very behind on my Patreon rewards. So there's part of me that's like if people don't find it right now, that's okay.
Yeah, Patreon rewards are. It's tough when you're already busy doing a comic. It's bonus material is tough to find time for.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't done a Patreon yet. I don't think I have enough followers yet to really justify it in my circumstance. What do you suggest to people out there that eventually want to do like a Patreon? How long do you think they should wait till, maybe they've gotten some work out there? How long do you think they should wait? Or do you think they should just be case-by-case basis?
Definitely a case-by-case basis. I mean, one thing to point out is that any of us could make a Patreon page, and the absolute worst thing that could happen would be that no one backs it. So even then, it's a net zero if that happens. For me, I started a Patreon essentially after my audience kind of asked me to do it. I started getting messages from people that were like, hey, this Patreon thing is really cool, and if you did one, I would love to support you on it, so maybe you should consider this. So that was the thing that finally pushed me over the edge. I was like, all right, people want to support me and support the comics that I'm putting out there, so let's give them a venue for doing so. And it's been a really positive experience for me ever since then. So for new creators, I mean, go ahead and try it if you're interested in. Again, the absolute worst thing that'll happen is you don't make money off of it, but you wouldn't make money off of it if you didn't start one anyway. So there you go. But yeah, I would guess that on average, probably 1% or less of your total audience is actually willing to throw a couple bucks your month at you on Patreon. It ends up being a very small number, especially when you're first starting out, but it builds over time, and the more work that you have out there and the bigger that your audience is, the better that it'll do for you. So it doesn't hurt.
Well, speaking of building audiences, part of what I've been doing lately is now that Instagram has really gotten a foothold out there in social media. I started my Instagram page a couple months ago, and I'm almost up to 200 followers just by putting up my random doodles daily, pretty much daily. And, some little paintings, things I do, because I always, as an artist, I do a lot of warm-ups, especially before I'm going to do any work. So it's easy just to take a second, take a photo, put it up there, and grow it, because there's no point in not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the only secret to building audiences is, keep making stuff and keep putting it online where people can see it. There's part of me that thinks that it doesn't even matter a lot of times where you're putting it up specifically. I mean, different platforms will have different advantages and all, but yeah, I mean, the important thing is just make work, have it be visible, have it be in a place where people can find it, and if you keep at it, and if people like what you do, then it'll kind of start building its own momentum naturally, which is a nice thing about the internet.
Yeah, definitely. Nice snowball effect, and it can be a gradual one, or it can be a massive screamer down a steep hill. I've seen a couple of people go, "Whoa, wait a minute, what the heck?"
Definitely. I use the snowball metaphor for my students too, because I teach a lot of comics classes. Because a lot of young cartoonists, especially the kids that are still in college, sometimes they can be kind of intimidated by putting their work out there online because they're not very confident in it yet, et cetera, et cetera. You come up with lots of excuses for it. But the thing is, your audience and your social media presence, for most people really only grows upward. So the earlier that you start it, the earlier that you make your day one, then the better off you're going to be in the long run. So even if you're nervous about starting an Instagram, you should probably do it anyway.
Exactly. You know, just go ahead and put your foot out there.
Yeah.
Just the toe in the water. It's okay.
Yeah, one thing I like about webcomics is for a lot of webcomics, even the big ones that have been around for a long time, you can still hit that first comic button and see 13 years ago what Gabe or Scott Kurtz or any of these guys, Jeff Jacques, what they were drawing like when they put their comic out there to begin with. Because it's shocking at this point, because obviously they've been drawing every day and they've improved enormously. Yeah, going back and seeing that old stuff, you're like, you know what? My art isn't where I want it to be, but it's better than this, or it's on par with this, or whatever. And I don't know. Yeah, putting it out there and letting people see it, and it motivates you to work every day. And
well, it also gives you personal permission, more or less, to do it. Just go ahead and do it. It's okay, make that thing, That's the easiest way to do it. Do it. Do it.
Professional cartoonists working today went through that early period where they were creating terrible comics that they never want anyone to see ever, ever, ever. And that's just part of the process. Is like, what is that? People talk about that like 2,000 page rule where you gotta draw 2,000 pages of comics before you draw your first good one. But yeah, like the vast majority of those 2,000 pages of comics are going to be like total crap. But that's okay, because that's what we're all doing. We all start out terrible at this job and get better the longer and the more hours that we put into it.
I can already say I'm terrible right now. That's okay. But, at the same time, I'm kind of okay with being terrible, because I figure this is all just a learning process. I've never made comics before, so I'm learning it as I make it. Yeah, I didn't get to afford to go and get the education I wanted to, but that's okay. You can still learn as you go. There's no gateway, there's no boundary. You don't have to go to school, but it's better if you go ahead and at least get you some books. There's plenty of online sources, which I will post links in the doobly-doo for anybody that wants some. I have been finding these great poser websites. They're free for anybody to use, that they've got mannequins on them you can pose. And man, that's helped so much, because sometimes you can visualize it, but it's still kind of fuzzy. And if you've got something to look at, if you don't have a photograph, I use my webcam a lot, and I make faces of myself all day long.
Oh yeah,
my webcam folder is 99% full. There's literally like 80 pictures of it in there of my hands. Just different angles, holding stuff. I have weird stuff under my desk, like I have an axe, like a little hatchet under my desk, because I was having trouble drawing my hand holding a thing that's the size of an axe handle. And I was looking around my room. I was like, well, I guess the only thing I can actually get that's in my room is that's the exact right size is an actual axe. So I have an axe under my desk, which is weird, but
you need it mounted on the wall. It's just one of those things that you got to give yourself permission for. It's okay to be weird, and everybody does it. Mm-hmm. Everybody makes something out there. We do. Everybody makes something. Even if you're following how-to instructions, you're still making something. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to mess it up the first time. Hell, you're going to mess it up the first 50 times. But that's okay. Did you learn from it? Did it get better as for the next one? Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Yeah, it's funny because like I've been doing this for almost a decade now, and like I'm at a point in my career where like my comics are self-sustaining, like I've got books coming out, like everything's going well. I still do the thing where I look at my comics pages and I'm like, this could have been better, but like, oh well, it's done, it's out the door, like I'll do better the next time around, and I'll look back on this page in a year and be like, well, I was growing, I was still learning stuff, and that's all you gotta do with comics.
Oh heck yeah. Oh heck yeah.
It's kind of that like perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Is that the
perfect is the enemy of done?
Yeah. Yeah, perfect is definitely the enemy. you don't need to be perfect. We're human beings. We are not perfect living creatures. So instead of trying to strive for perfection, try to strive for getting it done first. If you've got time, refine it. If you don't, put it up, keep going. Refine the next one.
Yeah.
You know, I had to take a hiatus with my comic here for a little bit, financial reasons and whatnot. I had to focus on paying bills, you know, for a little bit there, and that's okay. And I'm getting back into the role of things, and I think I'm going to do, because I was trying a more digital route with it when I first started, because it is a little speedier with some of the digital process, but it just doesn't feel right. It's not coming out right. So I'm going to go more traditional with my relaunch here myself. And I'm giving myself permission to do this. You know, it's not bad. It's not wrong. It's my journey, and I'm sharing it with everybody. Heck yeah. Oh, man. All right. Why don't we hit up on some comics news that's been kind of floating around the internet spheres and see how everything goes. What do you guys think of Alan Moore's announcement he's going to be retiring?
I assume it means he's out of ideas.
Well, he said in this interview through The Guardian that basically he feels like he's come to completion more than anything else with the comics he's made and everything else. He says he's got right around 250 pages left in him, and then he's done. But being a creator, that's not something you can just turn off, you know? I don't know about anybody else, but it's constantly going in my head. All the time. Always in the back of my head. You know, I have a moment in the day where something funny happens, and, you know, I'm writing it down. You never know. And
that can change once you get older, though. Because, I mean, Alan Moore has been in this business for a long time. And, I mean, what he's doing is definitely not unprecedented. I mean, there's kind of a thing that happens across the comics industry board where, like creators kind of drop off a lot of times, and a lot of times it happens even earlier than that, like happens in your like 30s or 40s. I mean, the fact that he's made it into like what, his 60s maybe, that's actually pretty impressive for a creator. And yeah, maybe he wants to go the Bill Watterson route and just be like, all right, I've told the stories that I want to tell, and I'm getting up there, and I want to enjoy my retirement. I don't know. It makes sense to me on a level. I could imagine getting to a place myself where I'm like, okay, I've done the stuff that I've wanted to do. And also, like, for Alan Moore, he has had, like, some of the worst experiences with the comics industry. So I can totally understand feeling a little burnt out on, like, making comics after
definitely.
Decades upon decades of people screwing you over.
Definitely. You know, our laws have gotten better and whatnot, so I think that'll definitely help the newer generations, and he's definitely an example of what happened with some of the older ones and what to avoid. But I think he might just go on to make something else, but I don't think it'll be comics anymore, because he is a writer. So maybe he'll just go on to make something else that's strictly him, you know, that he doesn't have a creative team he has to formulate it around. It's just his.
Or maybe he'll move into editing or novels or screenwriting or any other number of things that he can do with his years of experience.
Oh, heck yeah. You know, I could see him doing screenplays and stuff, because you can do those from your own home office, and you're good to go. And because he has an established name, he could still go on to create many things. But maybe he's just retiring from the comics industry side of things. Because just about any creator I know at least goes on to create something else. Yeah. They might necessarily retire from one thing, but they'll go on to the next.
Yeah. They also might just, be making stuff but never share it, which is a valid thing to do too when you've had a full career. I mean, like I keep bringing up Bill Watterson, but he's still doing like oil paintings and things, and they just hang out in his house. and he's probably not ever going to show them to anybody. That's his prerogative. Like, all right, you've had a long, successful career. You're allowed to like just hang out in your Calvin and Hobbes mansion and like do paintings.
Heck yeah. You know, well, what is the goal of a comics creator? You know, you want to make your work, but you also want to make a living off of your work. And, you know, Watterson, for instance, Moore as well, has established that they've got their retirement, so to speak, set up through it. I know Watterson himself has a very large estate. So, you know, overall, they've done quite well for themselves. They've actually made a living and have established their lives. So they're going to pretty much retire in comfort and make obscure paintings. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like, you know, any other day job out there in the world. Like, yeah, it totally makes sense that people would retire from that. Like, you can be an engineer, but you're not going to be an engineer your entire life, even if you love it. So, like, yeah, it makes sense that cartoonists would oftentimes want to choose a similar path.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's go on to the call for artists. Now, this is a slightly older story. It's in the links down in the doobly-doo for anybody that needs it. Well, it's to call out artists to help keep an eye out at conventions for a bunch of these rip-off print vendors that more and more are really taking up a lot of real estate in comics conventions, especially in Artist Alley, things like that. And this particular story that I've got listed, this one was back from the middle of June. And this particular artist called somebody out, got a hold of the con officials, and were able to have said rip-off artist kicked out. They were kicked out of the con.
Good for them.
I believe, let's see. It was from Wizard World, Minneapolis. The guy was doing a rip-off of Simone Bianch's work and trying to pass it off as his own.
Oh, so this is different than like people selling fan art prints at cons. This is more like...
Well, this definitely gloms onto that, though, too.
Okay.
Well, it's different.
You know,
I mean, fan art generally is original art with copyrighted characters.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, I think, is just someone finding somebody's picture on DeviantArt and throwing it on a shirt or something, right?
No, this is a well-established, well-published artist. They literally ripped off a portfolio of their work and put their name on it instead.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just literally stealing someone's art and trying to sell it.
Yeah. Now, I've seen this at several cons that I have gone to, small and large. And a lot of conventions, they don't want to lose and have empty tables, you know? I understand the convention's point of view, and you need butts there. You need people filling up the vendor space in order to keep the crowds coming in and circulating around.
Yeah, but I don't think... I mean, when I tried to sign up at A-Kon here in Dallas, the entire Artist Alley filled up in under 15 minutes. You know, I don't know that they need butts and seats as a valid excuse to host, you know, people who are doing rip-off art. Because I think there's a shortage of that sort of stuff.
But yeah, this one in particular, they were just ripping off one artist and trying to pass themselves off as another. But in this story, they also talk about the fact that people are doing walls of prints, you know, and all of these are rip-off of copyrighted characters. So they're doing copyright infringement straight up.
Well, I still say that's a different issue, though. As long original art of... I mean, yeah, given what the copyright laws are in America, I mean, technically you're not really supposed to do that, but blatantly just lifting someone else's art and selling it as your own is clearly more wrong. I mean, to me, I think. There's little wiggle room there.
I think there's also a difference between, like, is the victim of your copyright infringement, like, Disney, who has bajillions of dollars already and, like, all right, you're not really going to hurt them with your prints, or is it, like, another independent artist on the internet who's also trying to make their living off of selling this exact same artwork that you're, like, stealing from them? I do think that those are different moral categories. And yeah, the whole, like, print walls thing at cons is definitely a, like, that's a weird copyright infringement gray area right there. But yeah, when it's like here's a thing that someone else drew and I'm just gonna print copies of it for myself and sell them for money, then that one smells fouler to me than the like wall printed fan art.
Well, a lot of the ripoff artists, what they've been doing is they'll find, let's say they find you have done 5 pieces of just fan art. You know, I do a lot of fan art for warm up, because it's just fun to draw Sailor Moon or whoever I've been enjoying lately. And so let's say you have 5 pieces of Sailor Moon fan art you did. You didn't print it up, okay? You just, you have it on your blog or your DeviantArt or on your website. They take a copy of that, throw it in Photoshop, throw some filters on top of it, maybe some splatter effects or something, put their name on it, and then made prints of it and are selling it.
I don't think it matters what the subject matter is. If they're taking your art, your actual art, then it's indefensible. It's completely wrong.
That this has happened more and more. Gail Simone, in fact, jumped in on this too. She's in the article there being listed as talking about it, excuse me. She says she sees this a lot because, of course, being Gail Simone, she goes to a lot of conventions and she sees this happen a lot. Now, she doesn't specify characters so much as just people going out literally ripping off somebody else's art, a well-published artist, will throw some filters over, put their name on it, and sell prints. And that's literally what they've been doing, claiming it's original because they altered the image.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've had people try to steal pieces of mine by doing that. And yeah, it's like, that will not hold up in a court of law. You are still committing copyright infringement in that case. Sorry. It's funny too, like, gosh, this is one of those reasons why, like, it's really important to, A, watermark all your images, and B, don't put your high resolution images up online. Like, don't, like, you've got your 300 or 600 DPI images saved on your hard drive, and that's fine, but don't make those the files that we post on Tumblr. Like, only put up your 72 DPI images.
DPI, yes. Yeah.
At the very least, so that when they try to print them, it'll turn out all, like, grainy and awful, and they won't be able to sell them at cons. I had someone do that to me once. I had a comic that went viral a couple years back, and funnily enough, it was a comic that was all about, like, how artists are mistreated and underpaid habitually. And I got this email from some random person after this kind of blew up on the internet, and they were all like, excuse me, something appears to be wrong with your file because I tried to print it so that I could sell it in my Etsy store, and it came out all green.
They contacted you?
Can you please send me the correct version? So, yes, don't put your high-resolution images up online, kids.
What an idiot.
Yeah. God damn.
That's like somebody who pirates a game and then contacts the company for technical support because the game won't work.
Yep, exactly. But it's not working. Yeah, about that.
Funny, you should mention.
Yeah. We don't have a receipt of you buying that. Yeah, but nonetheless, ripoff is ripoff. Now, I'm a bit staunch about this. Copyright law, to me, is king. It's part of our bread and butter, so to speak. It does help protect us. So the fan art I don't sell any of it. I might put some up, like, on my Instagram, but again, it's low-res stuff, It's just to show I've got versatility and skill. And again, it's just warm-up doodles. But I don't make prints of it. I don't make anything off of that because I don't own the characters. And that's how I feel, you know? And I'm also following the letter of the law because I don't own the character.
Yeah, it's funny.
And
Sakimi-chan, do you know who she is?
I know
She's the Photoshop artist who, her Patreon is bonkers. She makes like $40,000 a month on Patreon.
Wow.
And all she does, not to minimize what she does, she's a really, really good artist, is she does, mostly it's fan art of characters, but it's like her original take on them, and they're extremely well painted. And the reason I think she has so many subscribers is, you know, if you subscribe at a certain level, you get like the original Photoshop files, high res, and she includes videos of her painting them. So I subscribed to her for a while to hopefully get some kind of tips on how to do it. She does a few tutorials, but it was some of her color theory stuff that I was interested in, but she never really kind of goes into that. But she goes into, materials and all this other stuff. Anyway, it's weird because she paints, Link and Zelda and, characters from whatever, Overwatch and animes and all kinds of stuff. She doesn't actually directly sell prints, though. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe she does. But people donate to her Patreon to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars a month to get access to her videos and tutorials and stuff. So she's not selling fan art, but she's making a lot of money on it.
Well, I think that goes into slightly different category because she's doing more, you could classify that as teaching.
Yeah.
And because she's just displaying skill and teaching, I know that's, again, gray areas here, but still.
Yeah, it is. It would be interesting. I mean, hopefully it never comes to this, but it would be interesting to have a lawyer examine that because, she's making money on someone else's property in a way, but it's her original work, and she's not actually selling her work. It's performance, really. I'm sure legally it's probably fine. It's one of those areas that somebody could look at, like her mats. Disney, who cares? They bought Star Wars for $1 billion. Didn't blink an eye, I'm sure. But, or it was more than that. It was like $4 billion. Her impressive Patreon is still nothing to them. Of course, the person selling their little painting of Ariel at a con for $20 is nothing to them too, but they still sometimes send cease and desist letters to those people, so who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of depends on the company. Like, different companies will have different policies or reactions to getting word about different types of copyright infringement of their work. Like the famous story that people like to talk about is DC Comics. For a really long time, like they got wind of like people selling Batman fan art, and most of the time they were always kind of like, whatever, like let the people have their fun. But if you were doing things which displayed Batman and Robin in any sort of homoerotic context, they would come down on you like a sack of bricks because they were not okay with that. So it's really weird because it, like, legally speaking, you are committing copyright infringement, and that is bad. You should.
Yeah, I think copyright laws in America need to be revised.
Oh, absolutely.
For one thing,
definitely.
An undefended copyright is considered an abandoned copyright, which is a really bad. That needs to be changed. I mean, if nothing else, that needs to be changed because, there was like I remember a specific instance, and I'm sure there's a million examples of this, but like in the height of Buffy's popularity, Warner Brothers or whoever was producing the show, had to send a cease and desist letter to the most popular Buffy fan site. Because it was like, oh, well, they've got our logo all over the place and all kinds of material and like clips from the show and whatever else.
Yeah, in that case, that's actually a trademark thing more than a copyright thing. Trademark that goes undefended can be lost legally, and that. Yeah,
like I said, I think that needs to be.
It's not so much for copyright, though. Those are two different legal things.
Well, for all I know, maybe they could have just sent a letter saying we officially endorse this, but it's not officially official. It's just we acknowledge it exists, and I don't know. Maybe it could have been handled differently, but it seems to me that the way the law is worded, that you basically just have to send lawyers out all the time, just to police the whole world for stuff like that. The other thing that needs to be changed is the infinite copyright. How Disney's held on to Mickey Mouse for 100 years or whatever. And not that I want to draw like Mickey Mouse fan comics, but Dracula and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Sherlock and everything that Disney's ever done, basically all the fairy tales and stuff like that, that's all something that somebody came up with at some point. And well, the fairy tales are probably like this crowdsourced. They're not like, most of them aren't attributed to a single author, but the idea that stuff has gone into public domain, and all of the really cool stuff that's come out of, I mean, obviously a lot of crap too, but like the new BBC Sherlock or the new the Elementary show are both Sherlock things. And I think Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has an estate, and they actually okayed that stuff. But
no, they didn't.
Well, I mean, the fact is it is public domain now because it's been around for so long, and so people can make. I mean, just imagine if Frankenstein was copyrighted still, like it would almost be non-existent. Like there would be no Frankenstein Halloween masks. I mean, I don't know, maybe Mary Shelley would have an estate and they would license that stuff, but I think it's better when that sort of stuff, give the author, 100 years copyright and then turn it loose or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and the public domain exists to help creators and to help preserve works past the lifetime of their authors, which is why it's a really good thing. And yeah, it absolutely sucks that like there's a very good chance that like anyone who's creating anything after 1928, after Steamboat Willie, it's never ever going to naturally fall into the public domain because Disney will never let it go. But yeah, I heard someone recently talking about how like, oh well, like orphan rights laws will change that because like then it's like, oh, if you let the copyright lapse on your work, then like big giant companies can just scoop up the copyright on your work, and that'll be totally fine. And that's a whole different barrel of monkeys right there. But yeah, people who are listening to this, maybe when you're making your wills, put some sort of proviso in there that like after a certain period after your death, you would like to put all of your copyrights, everything that you have ever made, into the public domain after a certain number of years after your death. It's not a bad thing to consider.
Heck yeah. I think we should try to go ahead. We have a copyright lawyer friend who comes on the podcast now and again. His name is Matthew Parker. I think we should go tug his ear and see what he says.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting topic to discuss with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yes, he's very much fun. He's actually a writer as well, so he frequently comes on, at least talks about the writing side of creativity. He does Border, Kansas, if anybody wants to look him up. His link is down in the doobly-doo, so go ahead, check him out. He's pretty cool. So we'll have to tug his ear maybe next time around and see if we can't get him on the next podcast and see what he says. But yeah, copyright, especially as it's evolved in just the past 10 years, has been kind of insane. Especially with all the orphan works laws. I mean, God. And, if you can't afford to defend your copyright, how can it become abandoned? It's not abandoned. It's still being actively used. You're still alive. I made it. But you can't afford a lawyer, so it's abandoned. No.
There was actually, if you read back in, I also teach copyright law to comics students. So there was a big memorandum that was written by the U.S. Copyright Office just this past, like a year ago, like June 2015, I think. And they actually talked a lot about the orphan works laws. And didn't put anything into like actual for reals law, but more just made suggestions for like if we wanted to go forward with this, how should something like this look? And you can find it all online if you want to read through it. But the gist of it is basically that they laid out a whole bunch of rules for the steps that companies would have to take if they wanted to claim a quote-unquote abandoned piece of copyrighted material as their own work. And they are actually pretty stringent steps. Like they would have to do things like they have a special little like Orphan Works Laws logo that they have to put on it, and they have to prove that they've done a due diligence search for it, which has to it has to be more than just like I typed it into Google and did a reverse image search and nothing came up. And there are provisions in there too for like if you discovered that one of your copyrighted works had been mistakenly taken as an orphan work by a different company, here are the things that you can do to recoup damages from these companies for that, all that stuff. So it's not quite as scary as a lot of people make it out to be. And if anyone knows Katie Lane, she's a lawyer that works with cartoonists, and she has this great blog called workmadeforohire.net. She did a really wonderful write-up just this past year when the new memorandum from the U.S. Copyright Office about orphan works laws came out, where she broke down, like, what is this actually saying? How dangerous is this to artists, actually? What should we be on the lookout? Do we need to panic now? And the overall answer seems to be not really just yet. So I have a lot of opinions about orphan works laws, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, we should all at least keep an eye on it, if anything. I mean, you know, it's something to always be checking up on, because anytime they change laws on it, you need to make certain it's not going to screw the people.
Yeah, there certainly are ways that, like, copyright cases can fuck with artists, but the orphan works laws, at least from where we're standing right now, might not be the worst among them. Having your work, like, printed on a fucking Urban Outfitters t-shirt is probably a way worse thing to happen to you.
Oh God.
Asked if we're actually allowed to use adult language on here, or if I'm gonna get in trouble.
Oh hell no, motherfuckers. Okay.
Fuck all this shit.
No. God. Several of those companies, Forever 21, a couple of them, they're just terrible. They're terrible about ripping people's work off, and yeah.
Yeah, and they just keep doing it. Like they get their hands slapped and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't know." And then like a couple months later, they turn around and do it again.
Yeah, if
somebody else.
Punishment isn't actually a deterrent, there's almost no reason other than not being shitbags, not for them not to do it. It's the same thing like when a big oil company has an oil spill or whatever. If they don't get slapped hard enough to make them like build quadruple hull ships in the future, why would they bother? Besides, like I said, not being shitbags. Yeah,
and a lot of artists get stuck in this kind of a catch-22 when it comes to copyright infringement with big companies, because one of the weird things about copyright law is that if you want to be able to sue for damages in a copyright infringement case, you have to have previously registered your copyright with the Copyright Office, which costs I think it's like $35 to $55 per item that you're registering. So it's definitely not something that like us average artists can afford to do for like every little doodle that we're going to put up on Tumblr or whatever. But if, say, Urban Outfitters like finds one of your pieces that you put on Tumblr, prints it on a t-shirt, you can't sue them for damages unless you have previously paid the Copyright Law Office that like $35 or whatever to register your copyright and wait the like 6 to 8 months that it takes to process them. Then you're allowed to sue Urban Outfitters for damages. But if you haven't done that, then it's like, well, you can send them a cease and desist letter and you can get really angry on Twitter about it and like publicly shame them for it. But that's about all you can do.
About it? Yeah.
Which sucks.
That's about most any artist can do anyway, because who can afford a lawyer?
Oh yeah, I mean that's part of it too.
Yeah, that's basically.
All they'll do is show who has more money.
So yeah, don't shop at Urban Outfitters. Anyone who's listening to this, like, I mean, this is I think the only reasonable response we can do is like if you hear about a company that keeps on ripping off other artists, give them your money. Like never ever shop at that establishment and make it clear wherever you can why you're not doing that. Don't do it.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's where it'll hurt them the most, is in the pocketbook. If you find somebody's work you like and get a hold of that artist. Hey, I really like this design. I would like it on a T-shirt. Or
you know what? I actually came across this exact thing recently. I was looking at DeviantArt I was trying to find a real big mouse pad, like just a cloth covered thing with a neoprene back on it, and like a real just simple design. But it's hard to search Amazon for like something that specific. So I was just looking at mouse pads, and I found this funny picture that somebody did that combined Grumpy Cat with that scene of Ariel from The Little Mermaid as she's like thrusting her chest out as the wave hits behind her. So it was like Grumpy Mermaid, and I was like, that's kind of cute. My wife likes the Grumpy Cat stuff. So I was about to buy it off Amazon, but then I saw a customer review that said, I am the artist of this, and I'm not, and someone stole my design and I'm selling it. So I was like, oh, okay. So I did. I don't remember if he had a link straight to his original. Yeah, I think he had a link straight to his original art on the DeviantArt page, and you can actually, he had it available as a print, and you can, DeviantArt, like, oh, put it on a mug or whatever. They have their own print cafe kind of stuff. So I bought it straight from DeviantArt. I don't know. I'm sure he got a cut, probably not much, but he got something, and I didn't give any money to a company that stole someone else's art. So.
Oh, that's exactly it. I mean, you just do a little bit of research. If you find out, okay, I like this design. Oh, they stole it. Oh shit! All right, let's find out who made it.
Now, unfortunately, that sort of stuff is really hard to actually find out independently, unless, like I said, I happen to see the comment, like who reads a user review for a mouse pad, but I just happened to be scrolling the page and I saw it. So, otherwise, it is really tough to track that stuff down, which is what people like that rely on.
True, but still, if you can take the time to be searching something out to begin with, you can take a few more minutes to maybe find who made it.
Yeah, at least throw it into a like reverse Google image search thing just to see if anything comes up. But yeah, but I agree that it's not the easiest thing to do in the world right now. Copyright law in general has a lot of catching up to do with digital media, so we're kind of stuck in a weird in-between space right now with copyright law. So there you go.
It'll eventually get smoothed out, but like any laws, it takes time.
Yeah, and then hopefully eventually, it'll get there. They've already updated it a couple times. Like we have that Digital Millennium Copyright Act now, the DMCA takedown thing that allows you to like go around to websites that are ripping off your work and be like, here is a notice that you need to comply with and take down the copyrighted material that you stole.
Yeah, that one's a double-edged sword though, because a lot of companies.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a double-edged sword.
It's good that it exists. It's like, but I've seen enough YouTube videos of people complaining about companies just shotgunning out. In fact, there are companies that literally exist to do nothing but issue copyright claims against videos, even if they have no media in the video that they can prove is theirs. It's like right now, it's an automated system because obviously, people upload like 1 million videos a day. So if someone issues a strike, the video gets automatically, well, it's usually not a takedown now, but instead the ad revenue goes to the person issuing the strike instead of the person who made the video. So there are companies now that exist to do nothing but just file false strikes, and then it takes like YouTube like 3 weeks to resolve those things, and so in the meantime those companies get 3 weeks worth of revenue off of videos they had nothing to do with. And it's just like, God, I would have trouble coming up with something that dastardly. Like if I was trying to write a cartoon supervillain, I would still have trouble coming up with something that shitty.
Yeah, that's actually a similar thing as the entire business model of Getty Images and a few other image aggregator sites right now, where all that they do, the only way that this company makes money is that they own the copyright on enough stock photos, and they make them easy to find on the internet so that people will use them on like websites or whatnot, so then they can send them these official scary looking letters that say something like you stole one of our images and now you owe us like $5,000 or we're going to drag you to court and sue you over it. And, it works because like maybe 90% of the time people will get these letters and be like, there is no fucking way. Like, I'm not paying this. This is bullshit. They'll ignore it. But those 10% of cases where people are like, oh no, like I can't be dragged to court over this. I'll just send them the $5,000 just to get them off my back. Like that's how they make their money right now. And it's technically legal what they're doing, but they're just making a living off of screwing over millions of people on the internet right now.
They rely on the fact that the law is for the rich.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can't. I mean, even talking to a lawyer to say, "Is this legit?" could cost you like $300.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Their tactic is fear. That's their biggest tactic is fear. A lot of people are afraid of the legal system.
Fear and surprise and an almost fanatical devotion to the Pope.
It's true.
That was Monty Python reference for those of you who didn't get it. Yeah, it's pretty sucky.
Well, overall, I think
what would fix the thing with Getty Images if Google was better at image search. I mean, as an artist who needs lots of reference all the time, I Google all kinds of crap all the time, and the reason that their images, all those stock image sites come up is because they post that photo usually with watermarks. I don't know how people are getting that stuff without the watermarks on it, but then they actually tag. I was looking for like a profile side-on shot of a woman yelling because I wanted to see how the jaw,
kind of
the jaw isn't
elongates.
connected right next to the ear. The actual pivot is, closer to the middle of the cheek. So the jaw kind of like comes in a little bit away from the ear, So I just, whatever. But they have, they post the image and they say, woman, brunette, yelling, blue shirt, like all kinds of stuff that's relevant to the image. But if somebody, like Instagram or whatever, just posts a picture of their friends, like, yelling at each other, that doesn't come up in Google image search because Google doesn't actually know what that picture is because they named the picture when they uploaded it img001.jpg, and there's nothing else that Google knows about it. So, Google needs to, do better image recognition and image tagging, or I don't know what, how to fix it, but that would definitely help. And would help me too, because I'd find a lot more images, good images for photo reference.
Very true. Well, I think we're pretty good here. I think we can go ahead and just wrap this episode up. You guys got anything else you want to put out there on the interwebs?
I did want to ask one question. How much colored pencil do you go through coloring a page of your comic? Because that sounds expensive to do.
It's very expensive. It's a lot, to be honest. This is one of the reasons why I'm really grateful for Patreon, because it basically covers my hosting bills and art supply bills right now. I kill a lot of trees for this comic. It's better now. Like when I started, and a lot of people do this, I was using Prismacolor colored pencils, which is kind of the industry standard. Like if you go to art school, that's what they're going to tell you to buy. And they're terrible, to be honest. They're horrible, horrible, useless pieces of shit pencils.
I never really experimented with those. When I was actually using natural media, Prismacolor was the only colored pencil I ever messed with. So.
Oh god, they're the worst. They're the worst on the market, and it's because the leads are so soft that by the time that they reach the stores, they've already been shattered. Usually in about 4 or 5 places on the inside, which is why you're constantly snapping the leads off when you use them. So you get about a good 2 inches of usable material for every Prismacolor that you buy. But if you buy literally any other brand on the market that isn't a I don't know, Rose Art or Crayola or whatever, they're not going to be that way. So they are actually cheaper, essentially per use, than Prismacolors are. So there you go. People of the internet, don't give your money to Prismacolor for colored pencils. Like, their markers and all are fine, but their colored pencils are the absolute worst that you can spend money on. There you go.
That is news to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and just wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us, Melanie. We appreciate it. And you can find her comics as The Crow Flies at melaniegillman.com. I have been your host, Melanie Chitwood. I do ornamental at ornamentalcomics.com, and my co-host today has been Dave Barrick of Girl Power.
Hola and hola, because aloha. That means hello and goodbye, not hola.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. All the links will be down in the doobly-doo below, so just check them out. You can give us feedback on below in the comments here on YouTube. On the audio version, you can go ahead and email us or at thetradecomicpodcast@gmail.com, or you can talk to any of us on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Melanie_C or the Trade Comic Podcast. Dave, what's your Twitter link?
Girl Power Comic, GRRL Power Comic.
And Melanie, do you have a Twitter you want to throw up there?
I do. It's Melanie Gillman Mel Gillman at twitter.com. It's Gillman with 2 L's.
2 L's. Like the gill. Just in case. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, subscribe, and let us know what you think of how things are going. So we will talk to you next episode. Bye.
Bye.